and then I sold it to you for.
I'll buy
Then
you.
I'd have to go buy the new one at the same price.
I own 3 of these.
Yeah.
I don't own a gold one.
Oh, okay.
That's okay, John.
I guess the gold was.
Yeah, it was his birthday celebration thing this year. And I literally had one in my cart, and I looked over and I saw that I had 3 of the exact same airbrush that were black, and I was like, no. And now I saw yours for the first time in person. I'm like, fuck.
All right, I think we are back. Yes. So I don't know if it's Sunday, something in the air. It's not. It's our internet provider. It's not on us. So, I was talking about Twilight 2000 and how they did that. They came back and did a futuristic version of that game, based kind of on that game. It was 2300 AD or something like that. Yeah. That I really like the way that they set that up with how the governments went into space and how they kind of ended up. So that was pretty cool. You ever see that around? I really like how that was put together. I think they took the same rule set and did a version of Traveler with it too. Of course, with a different universe, but
I don't know much about such things. But is it financially? Would it be a bad idea to just license something like that and then write your own background?
Well, here's the thing about, and don't anybody take this as legal advice and run out and do this and then get in trouble and come back and say that I told you to do this. You cannot copyright game concepts.
Oh, like rules and things like that?
Rules and things like that. Those are under copyright law. Those are not legal to be copyrighted. So you could copyright your universe and so forth and that, but the mechanics from a card game or a set of rules and how you use those and stuff like that are not copyrightable. Now, obviously, the way that they're written, you can't just take their book and everywhere it says D&D, put in B&B.
Global search and replace.
So that will work, but as far as game concepts, you cannot copyright those. So that's why you see a lot of, especially card games, they're basically the same mechanics. They may change something to be more unique, but a lot of the stuff is there. Right, you can copyright individual names. That's, D&D has the Beholder and there's some unique names that they've come up with. There are some images with the Beholder and some of the others that they created from scratch that you cannot copy. That's again, it's a very gray area to be careful in, but so that's where we're at on that. Could I take the 2300 AD storyline and make it? No.
No, but you could. No. You could.
I could do my version of
rules.
Yeah. But I actually have an RPG system, by the way. I do. It's D10 based.
Interesting.
Yeah. That we put together a long time ago that I worked on, and it was going to be the basis of a Reaper fantasy.
Yeah. I've always thought they should do.
I know. And what kind of killed it was when D&D did the open source.
Yeah.
That was about the same time that went in.
Okay.
So they actually did a couple of scenario books, modules or whatever, like the old style D&D modules that were done under the open source. I think Joseph Wolf wrote them.
I just want to say that this airbrush of yours, this Iwata Eclipse, is fantastic.
I know, I love it.
It's an awesome airbrush.
That's when you're getting listed. That's right down. Do Iwata?
My wife owns this airbrush,
and
I've never used it because I don't like to. She doesn't own it anymore. She just doesn't know that yet.
Right.
I'd never touched it before, and I was like, "Holy crap! This is a good airbrush."
And actually, you weren't sure about the.
Yeah.
If Iwata had all that, it does. You tied it all down.
100%.
Yes. Yeah. when I went to art school back in the day, before computers, you had airbrush classes because you did all your photo retouching and everything with an airbrush.
Photoshop wasn't a thing.
Photoshop wasn't a thing.
God, I can't imagine how hard it must be to, like take wrinkles out or something with an airbrush.
Yeah.
God, that sounds hard.
And that's where a lot of my airbrushing comes from. Unfortunately, I had an accident.
Yeah.
About a year or two after, when I was going to school and everything.
Yeah.
And I injured my right arm,
Yeah.
and it affected the nerves in it and my hand.
So
and I am right-handed, so I don't have some of the right hand motor that I used to. Yeah. So that certainly affected my painting and airbrushing and stuff. Because I just never had the time. I probably could go back more so. I mean, because I've, over the years, come up with ways to do different things, but I just never have the time to perfect it. So
the one thing about my setup at home is, I think I own like 5 airbrushes. So I could just put a color in every one of them,
right,
and come back and forth. Like, oh, a little too much blue here. I put some white back over it, and then now I need some pink right over here, and then blue again, and crap, too much white. I don't have to strip it down and reload.
Well, this is part of why this contraption came about. It's great for when we have people around, or if we're going to a show or something, and we're doing some airbrush classes.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I have enough airbrushes now. I'll hook all those babies up and go.
And just do them all at once. This is a great setup. I'm kind of jealous of this. I don't have the compressor that you have right now. Mine is a standard, buy it with an airbrush compressor. Right. I will say this is something I meant to mention earlier during our little airbrush talk. Another way you can power an airbrush, if you need to be silent, you've got a brand new baby and you want to airbrush and you don't want to wake the baby up, you can power an airbrush with CO2. Everything costs money. Go buy a 5-pound CO2 tank, get it filled up at your local air gas or whatever they're called, and you can totally run it off of that. CO2 is perfectly harmless and safe, and unless you're bulking out armies, it lasts a while, and it makes no sound. And on top of that, here's the other added feature. CO2 is perfectly dry. So when you're compressing air, there's water in the air, and the compressor wrings it out, and it stays inside your tank, and you got to drain your tank. And sometimes if your moisture trap isn't working right, that water will come through your airbrush.
Right.
CO2 is dry as a bone. So that's just
wonder if
another
we could
idea.
do it with helium too.
Then you talk funny while you're airbrushing. I don't know, John.
We should try next time. Let's airbrush with helium. Let's see what happens.
You go first. I'll time you.
All right. This was when you were talking about that earlier, and I yelled over on the deal. Obviously, when I went to school, I was a poor, aspiring student. So I couldn't afford an airbrush compressor at that, because you didn't have the availability of all the cheapies like you did back then. It was $300 to go out and get it. Right. There was no choices. So a friend of mine suggested that we try something, and we did, and it works.
Okay.
Is we went to a salvage yard and got a big truck tire, not the big trucks, but a bigger truck style tire, right? That's, I think it was, they're like 80 pounds, 85 to air up, somewhere like that. We took that and aired it up, filled it all the way up in the deal.
I see where this is
then
going.
unscrewed the pin, the valve in it, and put the thingy on the top of it. Gosh. And you could airbrush for a good hour to 2
on a tire,
off of a tire, till the pressure got, because if you're airbrushing at 15 or 20 pounds, it went for a long time.
Quite a while.
And
what a story!
When you were done, unscrew the cap, take it back to the gas station, fill it back in air, put the cap back on, roll it back to the house.
That's hilarious.
That's old school airbrushing right there.
That is very old school. I love that story. I am not going to try that.
No, I would. It's not. In hindsight, especially getting a used tire at that kind of pressure, should it have burst or something, it could have been bad. But at the time, it was a good idea, we thought. And
it worked.
It got me through my airbrush classes.
And you've got a hell of a story. God, that's a great story, John. Really? Wow.
Sorry, I have to. I did not think through our stools as well as I could have for the weekend. So we've got some shop stools here, like you go into the auto parts place used to and sit along the parts counter and stuff. So they're great for 10 minutes. Yeah. They're not so great for 8 hours.
At home, I paint standing up at home, so yeah. It's a little different for me. I also have more airbrush holders. That's okay. I'll just drain this one out.
Yeah, old window AC. I mean, the compressor's the compressor. The big thing with is the noise factor sometimes. So you can buy compressors. I've actually got one downstairs, a little blue one, that's continuous air. Mm-hmm. That is for airbrushing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. If you're not worried about the noise, it's great. It's not super loud, but it is. Right. You hear it the whole time. So that's where the tanks are very nice. If you have the ability to get a tank, and also the tire idea, you could also use the air tanks that you buy to refill tires. You can do the same thing there.
So the one thing I've never actually used one, but the one thing I've heard about tankless air compressors is obviously there's a piston in there, right? Yeah. Driving the air. And so what happens is if you're doing tiny little puffs of air, you can actually feel that every time the piston hits, because it's literally just pushing the air down the line to your brush. Right. And so that pulse is in your air.
With the tankless ones.
Yeah, with the tankless ones. Right. Instead of getting a steady flow like you would out of a tire. Right. or something. Again, no experience, but I've heard more experienced airbrushers talk about that. And that could impact what you're doing. If you're doing this. Right. Yeah.
I also have a vacuum pump down there. We could hook that up in reverse, pull our paint back
Suck
off.
The paint right
Suck
off
that paint right off there.
Okay, Jonathan.
Oh, it's a Sunday. It's third day.
You need a Snickers bar? Is it Snicker bar time? How do you do your play testing, game balancing, Kruger and us?
Play testing and game balancing. 2 parts. Some people will tell you that it's not the greatest way to go about it, but what I generally try to do with a rule or a concept or something like that is I feel like with my experience and how long I've been doing this and my all the games that I have been exposed to, it gives me a pretty good balance as to what will work and not work. The problem that you run into that is, and we've had that with CAV, is when we do something like that and we end up having 20 or 30 players test it for a while for us, and then we release it out there, and then you've got 1,000 players doing it. They come up with stuff that you would never in a million years think that anybody would try to do with a rule. I mean, just if you can think the most outlandish thing you can do with it, somebody will try it. So as the game has grown, we try to get some of the concepts out there and let people try them out a little bit. And we're going to be doing things like that. So that's generally how we do it. I'll generally play through it. Luckily, I have my own little in-house set of gamers that Dad attaches to the table and at least plays a little bit, so I can see how some things go. And while they have some experience with games, they don't have a lot to a degree, so they're able to ask questions and why is this doing this or why am I doing that, Dad? So that works out good. So it's not a big organized thing. You know, we don't have a big 10 people in house that do nothing but play games. I wish we did, but that's how I generally go about it. Is I try to balance as much as I can up front and get it out there for other people to try it out.
Took me a minute to realize what Tiger Wraith was saying. He's talking about that all aircraft force I ran.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
That's what it is.
I didn't have anything with that rule set up. So
Yeah, it's not on you.
I'm innocent.
Plausible deniability.
As far as CAVs and vehicles and such, no. There are jump infantry, but I really don't see there being jump CAVs or CAVs with hands as far as for combat and stuff. That just doesn't really fit into my.
Vision?
I don't know. I won't say never on jump. There's no telling. I mean, it may hit me right where I think jump will be okay. But as far as hand-to-hand combat, calves with axes and stuff like that, you won't see that.
That's actually my favorite difference between CAV and that other game.
Yeah.
The other game's a fine game, great game.
Right, no.
Play
Never
times.
anything that we're seeing are we trying to disparage the game because we both played it. Yeah. I played it for a long time.
A lot. But I love the fact that CAVs are basically walking tanks, right? They're not kung fu machines. I love anime. I love those anime games. But when I come to CAV, I'm looking for, this is like the military extended out a few hundred years with some made up sci-fi stuff. So, you know, I've got a gun, I'm going to shoot you. At my last resort, am I running into combat and trying to punch you to death? That's true of militaries throughout history. Nobody likes hand-to-hand combat. They would much rather shoot you from a distance. That's my favorite part, my favorite difference between those two games.
Now, with that being said, too, there are some like construction calves. They really wouldn't be calves. I guess that would be more. They would be, since they're not a combat assault.
Yeah, they're machines.
But there would be mechs with hands and power lifters and stuff like that. That's more in the industrial side. That you could have for a special. They're obviously not going to be as big, but you could have those as a special scenario or something like that. And they're naturally, because especially Mankind and Rock and everything like that, they have arenas that they would meet for one-on-one combat, that they would take all the guns and everything away from it, and it would be nothing but hitting each other with beams of steel or something.
Sort of a War Master situation.
Yeah, kind of a thing. So, you know, there's something, you know, we thought maybe as a expansion down the road to have a little bit of a combat system or whatever that will allow more hand-to-hand and stuff like that. Yeah, close combat, reality sports. And that's why I'm saying, Dave, I'll never say never on jump jets, because part of me, I can see why jump jets would be important. If I can really write it, figure out a way to figure it into the game mechanic universe as far as the technology, it might be something that there just really wouldn't be any need for calves to carry that kind of fuel. They don't, since they're working off of basically electrical systems. Mm-hmm. And in the reality of things, the fuel, a liquid fuel that you would use you would be out of fuel so fast that, you know,
you might get one
from what you would carry.
One per game, right?
Right. Yeah. Are you really going to give up 10 tons to carry 10 tons of fuel when you can put another gun on there?
Take off a heavy Mac and add a one jump.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we'll see.
Maybe like some sort of Black Ops unit or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And bringing that up, because a question that comes up all the time is about physical combat in the game. James actually yesterday brought up about charging with his tank. That was one thing that, just like James was talking about, as far as why you wouldn't want to get close. You want to try to stand back and shoot the bad guys. Yeah, exactly. RPG. There would be instances where somebody would do that, or they needed to do something because they're a pirate and they can't get the ammo for a gun or something, so they have to change something out to have a spar or something that they can poke through a door or something. But but we call it close assault combat in the game, but it's not actually physical combat. You're not actually punching or kicking or anything like that. It's just a kind of a game within a game that you have got so close and have become so tuned into each other that it's a little mini fight that obviously for speed purposes that we can't really have in the game. But you know, you're circling each other, you're both shooting. It's kind of a microcosm of what the big game is. So when you get into close combat, that's really what's going on. There's not any kicking or anything like that. I did at one point think about putting a optional rule in there called stomp, where if another cav was down and it was down to its last DT, and it was knocked down and you could get adjacent to it, you could stomp it and it was an instant kill. I thought that would be kind of fun.
Okay. That's a pretty corner case scenario. It's a pretty corner case scenario.
You wouldn't see it a whole lot.
Yeah,
It'd take a very, that's the reason I don't think it would be something that would overbalance or screw a game up, but
you'd almost have to set out to make that happen.
yes, but you know, when that happens, you know, in the original Warlord game, the miniatures game, there was a chart in there for Magic users when they would have a failure or whatever, that you rolled against, and it might randomly throw a spell or whatever, or the Magic user could just explode.
Okay.
And that was some funny stuff at some of the shows, especially if you had a 13 or 14-year-old kid playing at the table and a Magic user explodes, and they thought that was the neatest could be. So just something kind of fun to put in there. I do plan on putting up talking about playtesting and stuff. I'm really thinking about in the future changing the base to hit numbers. Right now we have 6, 7, 8, and 9. I think I would like to change them to 4, 6, 8, and 10. That was my original idea to do. The reason I didn't was because the other game uses 4, 6, and 8. And that was, I didn't want to, they use 4, 6, and 8, so you use 4, 6, and 8. So I use 6, 7, 8, and 9. I mean, it's kind of the same idea, just in my head it made sense. But in a 2d6 game, a +2 is huge.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, on the whole bell curve, percentage chance or whatever, a difference of 2 is not this. It's not just a doubling of 1. The great math majors can give me the tables on that, but it's a huge difference, a big change there. And I think that would, because I'm a maneuver guy. I mean, I'm not saying that every time that I move every time, because there's times when you don't need to move or you shouldn't move. There's no reason to. But I think that there is a need to move closer as the battle progresses. And I think that having the change, the variety from the 4 to the 10 would certainly push people together better. Because, you know, especially if you're a smaller weapon guy or whatever, you get down to rolling against 4s and stuff like that, you can punch through pretty thick armor.
Those Gauntlet 2s really...
Yes. Yeah. So I think that would bring up a lot of
how would that
situations.
How would that impact the attack roll you make after a successful strike point?
Well, and then for indirect fire, indirect fire was never supposed to be the equivalent of direct fire. Okay. CAV is a game of shooting, seeing each other, direct fire, and shooting. Indirect fire is supposed to be secondary to that. And it didn't work out especially exactly like I wanted it to. And that could be because I changed the numbers around. The original to hit number for indirect fire was 7, We used to call it Lucky 7. It was actually so much part of the game. When you get over here on the city map and you find the Gentlemen's Club, look at the sign on the building. So we'll do a close up. We'll show you. You'll see what we're talking about. So we are going to, and part of that is we're going to do away with 10 plus rolls.
Okay. So
there will not be an automatic, if you roll a 10 or 11 or 12 for a strike point, it'll be a target point 10. So you have to get over a 10, but that'll make the modifiers that are out there for indirect mean count for more.
Okay.
And then the base to hit number will be 7 instead of 6. So I think that regulates indirect a little further down. So there is a need to have indirect fire. It probably wouldn't be to your advantage to build an all indirect fire type force.
I think list construction will always stay much the same. Do you have any changes there?
As far as with the way the attack and no, I'm very, very happy with the way that system works.
So I'm thinking in the future, if you're de-emphasizing indirect fire just a little,
right?
So now chances of me bringing an indirect fire squad is going to be lower because they're less valuable. So the only real way to get one is to throw 1 or 2 into a special squad, or tuck one in the corner of a different squad.
I think that you can still design a fire support squad to be very effective.
Right.
When I say as a force, not to try to design the whole battle around trying to take indirect fire. It'll be one of those things. It's like your airplane scenario.
Right.
All right. If you build your force and totally ignore indirect fire, and he builds an indirect force to that you don't have a lot of counters for, you're in trouble. And I think that so you have to have that in the back of your mind. Is that guy going to bring in a fire support squad? And I'm not really set up to counter it. So that's the reason we're testing it. Right, and that's why I say I don't think that I don't think the changes are going to make indirect fire ineffective. I don't want it to be as prominent as direct fire.
So, currently in the game, if you're really trying, you can make indirect fire lethal.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that here's the thing that makes indirect fire especially powerful. It has a multiplicative effect in that if you can cover more than one model with a template, you get to attack every model with that underneath that template at full strength. Okay, and so if the map has a choke point and you have to go through there to achieve your objectives, an indirect fire unit can stand there and at that point turn one, let's say, Tiamat's worth of fire, which is a very powerful indirect fire cav, into effectively 5 or 6. If there are 5 models underneath the template, hypothetically, you're effectively firing 5 Tiamats. And that's hard to counter because you can't maneuver around the terrain typically. And if you have to go achieve an objective, you have to go through that point. The person knows that you're going to go there. And trust me, a friend of mine, Ross, has demonstrated that you can make indirect fire land when you want it to. If you build your squad properly, you won't miss.
Right. And that's kind of what we're, like I said, I don't think we're taking the teeth out of it. I think it's just maybe not, there'll be times for it, but by the same token, trying to get guys up there to take advantages of 4s rather than 7s could be a lot better deal. So, but they're tests, we'll change them, and what you bring up is certainly like that. That's what brought a lot of the adjustments when we updated the charts. As far as now, there's the pluses instead of it used to be just for long and extreme. Now it's. Are you running out of air?
I don't think so. I think your trigger's dirty. I need to clean this. Clean this trigger's ring in here. This area.
Okay. Yeah, there's probably haven't been taken out for a long time. Right. We took, well, that came out early on because that's my bad. That's the reason why in CAV-1 and CAV-2 there were direct fire missiles and indirect fire missiles or rockets. They called them. I think they were all missiles in CAV-1 and CAV-2, regardless. But they used two different ways to do damage to get to the damage result, which is what we do with direct fire and indirect fire. When we took the mechanic of direct fire and mixed it with indirect fire for guided missiles, it made guided missiles deadly, 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 because you could shoot them without being able to see somebody, and you were rolling on a lot lower numbers. So that's my fault. I screwed that up when we originally did it, and that was a quick fix. That came out pretty quick.
My guided missiles were powerful the first time I played the game.
Yes.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think that first tournament had a lot to do with that when we saw that. It was just something that slipped through and I didn't catch.
And part of that was on me. Again, 99% of the time when I design a force, it's like, that's a pretty model, that's a pretty model, that's a pretty model. And so I went to my first CAV-CON with all these models I really like the looks of, which made me play a particular way. I had to get close to you, and I couldn't get close to you. The old shock rules were a little more liberal than they are now for guided missiles, and so my force was constantly getting shocked and stuck in, and I lost by a lot. But my opponent, Ross Hines, he's a really great guy, made me feel fine for losing. He and I became friends, made a podcast. Even though I got my butt kicked, it was a fantastic experience.
And that's what the first tournament was really good for. That's why so much errata came out after the first tournament, because we had always been playing games. You know, people would pick their forces, we'd sit down and play. We were playing scenarios and stuff like that.
Right.
We didn't have the tournament mindset.
Right.
And when we did the first tournament, we got that with players.
Right.
And so we saw stuff like that where they were building and stacking stuff to take advantage of things that needed to be. So we had to make some adjustments with shock, with the indirect for guided missiles were two big ones. The little things like that we had to go in and change. So
they work much better now.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree that they do. And the other thing was specializing the weapons, because we had some of the weapon systems that had like two pretty predominant guided missiles. I think had shock, and then they also had improved range or something like that. So when we went through and rebalanced everything, we made every weapon system have its own unique ability. So, only Macs have blaster. Only racks do this. Only rockets have smart, things like that. So that makes, I think, everything a little more unique. We're gonna have to, both of us, we need magnet gloves.
Well,
to keep dropping all the little pieces.
Here's the truth of the matter is, I even in my customized work area at home, I drop crap all the time. It just happens.
Now, when James came up Thursday night, we were back in the shop and we were looking at things laying around there, and I had broke out one of my brand new Badgers to play with and was doing my base coats with and everything like that. And I started taking it apart to clean it, and the first thing I did was drop the little clip that goes behind that puts the pressure on the button.
This bit for Badger right here.
Yeah. And I mean, literally dropped it not 5 seconds after I opened the thing up. I'm still looking for it. If everybody would look on the floor around where they're sitting right now and see if it ended up there, because I don't know where it's at. I'm going to have to get a magnet out and drag it across the floor. So if not, I'm going to have to
order another one.
Buy a new piece for my brand new airbrush.
For your brand new airbrush.
Yeah.
And that's not the smallest part of a Badger airbrush.
No. That's the one I lost, and I can't find it now. Luckily, it was the lower model of the 4.
Yeah.
So at least I got that going for me.
Yeah, there's nothing like dropping part of my hard-earned steam back and knowing that the cheapest thing on there is $45
Yes, yeah,
for a tiny
so,
little piece of brass.
Yeah, my hope is that that little piece is pretty common across the Badger airbrush things. So I am looking forward to playing with the Reaper's new Vex.
Yeah, you know, let's talk about that for a minute. It's an airbrush manufactured to Reaper's specifications by Badger.
By Badger.
So if you haven't picked it up yet already, I love Badger airbrushes. I literally own 4 of them. Yeah, 4 of them, and it sounds really interesting.
It is. Mine are going to be showing up hopefully here pretty. Well, that's what I'm getting ready to get to. So get ready. It comes in 2 different variations. I think the only difference is we were kind of talking about, I think it's just the cup.
The cup size, yeah.
Yeah, the cup size is different. One's a little smaller, one's a little bigger. They are $200 a piece. What? To be honest, $199.99.
$199.99. They're under $200.
Yes. Yes, it is an ouch. So now, with that being said, they are giving lots of them away with things that they're doing. So pay attention. The chances out there to win them. But I got a couple of them coming my way, and maybe
yes, just say it.
We'll when you come up next time, we can play with them. And
I would love to
see what we think of them. So. Right now, all I have to go by is the hype as well.
Yeah.
I received the official hype
email,
phone call as we were talking one time.
Right.
It came up in conversation, so I heard all the good things and how great it is, but we'll have to find out if that's true. Luckily. The good thing, to a degree, it could be better, but James only lives about 2.5, 3 hours away from
about
us.
3 hours.
So, and it's good roads. It's not like driving
It's
trails.
fantastic.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's country driving, swoopy hills.
If you want to take the scenic route, if you take the highway route, both obviously Tulsa, but El Dorado is on the interstate. Just right off we're on the northeast corner of Wichita, so it's very, very easy to get to. I feel bad because I make James come up here for the most part.
You have all the
but
toys.
The problem is everything is here.
Everything's here. No, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, so to bring all the stuff down there that we want to mess with, it would be.
And I don't know where you would
set it up. I need a semi. Yeah, you have to empty your garage out. Oh, John's coming, honey. Time to clean the garage out.
my 3 adult children still live at home, so it would be, let's rent the neighbor's house and get them to take vacation.
Right. So we've got that going for us. I know that we've talked about, because we're getting ready to add on to our building here, and part of that add-on is we are putting in a studio to do this better than what we've got right now, but also to have a game area. And somewhat of a retail store frontage,
nice.
So that we can have people stop and people that want to come in and play. Or I get 1 or 2 calls a week. Hey, can I stop by? Yeah, you're welcome to stop by, but there's not really anything to see. If you see one warehouse, you've seen them all. So, but we need to get. We're trying to get a little better with that to make the experience a little more fun. Yep, CAV Mecca. Because I said we have, I'm sure that has to do with because we hit a lot more shows in the area and stuff like that. But we have great CAV presence in Dallas and Oklahoma City and Kansas City, Tulsa, St. Louis area. So there's a lot of CAV players in our general vicinity. Not so much directly here, actually, which is kind of funny.
In El Dorado?
Well, El Dorado, Wichita area. Yeah. But mainly it's because we really only have one game store, and they are not a miniatures other than the big 800-pound gorilla Games Workshop guy. Yeah. And they're not very supportive of anything else. So we've had to deal with that. And that's part of why I would like to get that put together where we could have people to come, because literally, even if, you know, we went to Wichita and ate last night and was over there in 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's tiny. Yeah. The distance is nothing.
Especially if you're used to living in the Dallas area. Just to go to the grocery store is 20 or 30 minutes. So
you better pack a lunch, because if the traffic is backed up.
Yeah, and then if you get caught in the traffic. So that's the nice thing too, is they built years ago, we have an expressway between El Dorado and Wichita, which we call it's 254 is what we call it. So it is a straight shot, and it cuts across the right north all the way through town or through the city, and you can get off on the east side, the center side, the west side, and it's very, very good. I will give our area that. We have very good traffic control. But part of that too is I think we're kind of a later city area, that a lot of this has been built in the last 30 years. And a lot of the older towns didn't think ahead and are now paying for that and have to build and tear down. And so that helps a lot. I know when my wife was working down south in Houston, going through there, Houston is paying the growth tax right now. I mean, they're to the point, they're shutting down their highways because they're having to come in and put 8-lane and 10-lane roads in.
Speaking of driving in Texas, in Dallas, those 5-layer loop-de-loops where there's like literally 5 levels of elevated merger
mix
curves.
Masters.
Is that what they call those things?
They're called mix masters.
My wife, when we go through there, she literally closes her eyes.
You're up there.
I mean, it's got. I feel it's like 30 stories in the air.
They're way up there. No, my wife is not comfortable either. Right? can't say I'm overly comfortable driving. I have all these fears of all the Los Angeles earthquake movies I've watched. Pancake.
Just forget it. You're done.
Please God, I'm on top. If you're going to do it, well, I'm going to do it when I'm on top. Austin has layered highways. You drive up or under through downtown. And I always take the upper.
Just in case.
Just in case.
I got a slightly better chance if this thing goes.
Yes, I got no chance if 100 tons of concrete fall on me.
True.
So.
All right.
Yes. But it's 10 times better than it was 20 years ago, Tiger. I promise you.
All right. So I don't know how much, if you can see this or not, but I've been sitting here working on this nebula pattern just a little bit. I don't know. Can you make that out? Do I go closer? Do you want to zoom? How do we do this? I don't know. Anyway, I'll take pictures of it, but it's just a lot of pinks and blues and purples over the top of this star, a white. Now I'm going to go in and manually paint in some little pretend stars and whatnot, and then fuzz them out a little bit with the airbrush. And this guy will be, I don't know, detail the cockpits, do a little edge highlighting. I could finish this guy up today if we weren't going to play, 100%. Doing there, John?
Well, I actually have a remote control for this.
So you can zoom it?
With Zoom, but I don't think it's got a battery in it. We never thought about using it.
Too bad we can't actually just post pictures into. I mean, you could put a link, I guess. But.
Well, if you want me to take a picture right quick of it and put it up on Facebook?
It's fine by me. If you want to, that's fine. Here you go.
We got a little white paper here and make our little film area. So we'll take a quick picture of it and throw it up on or Instagram.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
I can Instagram it.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, they give people a reason to go look at our Instagram account.
I'm going to run downstairs to the...
Okay. Just a minute, because I got to find Instagram. Especially because Instagram Only lets you basically put stuff on with your phone
Yeah,
anyway.
literally,
So.
you can't post it from a desktop.
There's a workaround. If you ever want to know, I'll teach you how to do it. But it's relatively easy, but it's not as easy as doing it on your phone. Just have to remember how to spell. Bear with me here. I'm get logged in. As usual, I have forgotten another password. Story of my life. It is hell getting old. We had quite the talk about new technology last night. All right. Yeah. Hey. Okay. So I had a few problems there, but we got it take care of. First, now the lights.
Give me a second, I'll throw my flashlight on it.
I don't think I can do that. Let's see. Hold your eyes. All right. Let's picture looks like. Okay, so our Instagram account, which is Talon Games, all one word. I just put a picture up of James where he's at working on his model for the moment, if you want to take a look. And it's time for a giveaway. Let's do a giveaway here. See. All right, so our new one for this one is going to be a game pack. So good chance to get a rule book, a faction of your choice starter set, and a deck of cards. Even if you already have it, enter. Said give it to a friend. Get them interested in the game. While they're working on that, I'm going to stand up and walk around the circle for a minute. So keep them entertained.
Keep them entertained.
Are you not entertained? Gladiator there.
I don't know if I'd ask that question real seriously. It's actually going pretty good. I'm answering Gimli's question. I missed it a little while ago. I've got the basics of my nebula pattern laid down, which John's posted up on his Instagram. And now I'm just going in and adding in a few individual stars. I'll put in, I don't know, a half a dozen of those or so. Then I'll come back in with the airbrush, and I'll just barely cover some of them with the color that they're painted on top of. Kind of push those into the background to make it look like they're more distant, like they're shining through the nebula. And some of them I'll leave on top, so like they're in between you and the nebula. They're brighter and whiter. And then that part will be done. And after that, on this model, obviously I need to do something contrasty with the cockpits. I can't remember what I did on my others. I'll have to go home and look so he will match with those. I'll do a little bit of edge highlighting, but before I do that, I'll probably come in with a little bit of black and just, come in from underneath where the model should be dark, and just reinforce it a little bit. So the top of it has a purpley cast to the black, and the underside in the deep shadows will just be kind of dark. It's got some missiles to pick out. Like I said, I'll accentuate the hard edges on the gun, like they might be glistening the light, gleaming the light back. These are PPGs of some kind. I think maybe heavy PPGs right here. And so I don't really know what kind of guns those are, but whether they use like lenses to focus stuff or it's just a torrent of plasma, I have no idea. But the ends of these guns have these sort of cockpit-like structures on them. So I thought about maybe painting these up as if they were glass. And to do that, what I would do is I'd pick a direction for my light, like probably from over here. And then I will just, think where would the light hit? In this case, I would probably push the highlights of my glass color up into this corner. And then whatever color the glass was, so I'd put white up in the very highest corner, and then a light, let's just say green. A light green, kind of a dark green, fading down to black, and then a couple of dots of white to represent like a reflection, just the simple technique for painting jewels. I might do something like that for these cockpits as best I can. Some of this glass, like right here, is really narrow, so it's hard to get much separation. Like I said, a little bit of edge highlighting right here. Maybe some like right through here, not over my nebula because I want to want to leave that like a paint job kind of. And then I don't know, just whatever makes it look good. Like even the dark side needs a little bit of a highlight to bring it out. It's got these little nodules on the top. I think John said they represent countermeasures. So where I haven't painted over them with the nebula, I might come in and put like a dot of metal silver in the center of them. Just whatever it takes to make the model pop. But this is a quick, fast paint job. So like I'm not going to try and go in and do a whole lot more to them. I made up this paint job with that in mind, so it would go fast. And I think it's pretty fast. I feel like I could paint up a whole squad of these in an afternoon probably. And that's what I like about painting. I want a good result, but I don't want to spend 180 hours on one model. And so I'm always looking for ideas or schemes or techniques that I pick up from other painters that are quick, that are fast, or that I can find a way to shortcut. That's just my way of doing things. Dismissive. Dance. Fireball Tech 55. Dance. You want me to dance? I am not a dancer. One-shotted Emperor with a circuit. I don't recall doing this. I don't. You're asking somebody else a question, Mr. Kruger, and I don't think I've ever done that. Dance chain. Fire. Here we go. How about that? Yeah. Sorry about the, we're not really set up to emphasize the painting part of this. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. One-shotted an Emperor with a circuit. Not sure that's even possible, quite frankly. There aren't any. So if you shot an Emperor, heavy Mac that was pierced to be strength 8, you rolled all 6s, get you an 18. Let's assume that the Emperor had been knocked down and you were shooting it. Well, I guess if you're knocked down, you can't be shot from behind. There's no behind bonus. Okay. So you get a +2 from that. You think you could have Wizzo, ATC 2, active phase array 2, so that would be worth a net +5. You could salvo your other heavy Mac. So that's 6, 8 plus 18 is 24. Let's say you're at short range, so your target number is a 786. So you had a margin of success of 18, plus your 8 is back up to 24, armor of 9 on an Emperor, back down to 15. So you had a margin of success of 15. 3 points of damage. You'd have to get him on a critical hit. It would have to be the critical hit. Well, I'm not going with the circuit. I'm just imagining the most power. I mean, I guess technically you could do the same thing with an overdriven heavy particle bolt gun. And so then you would double the 3 points of damage to 6. But other than a critical hit, I mean, the most damage you can do from a single weapon hit in CAV is 6 points of damage. And that's only with a particle bolt gun that's been overdriven that I know of. So, and even then, the Emperor has reinforced 2 probably. John, can you have more than, you can have like a damage margin of success higher than 10, right? There's only the 10 result, but you could technically have a margin of success of 15, so the reinforced would only pull it down to 13 or something like that. So you could still get the 10 plus result on a thing with reinforced 2. Okay. So yeah, 6 points of damage is the most you can get from a single weapon hit in CAV that I know of. You could take out a CAV by getting the just pilot destroyed critical hit roll.
Or taking out the motor freezer.
Yeah, there are a couple of different critical hits that I think that will destroy a thing. Yeah. Tiger made the comment the only way to one-shot any CAV is to have an MOS of 10 plus in a roll, a 2 or a 12 on the crit table. I think that's true of anything that has 6 or more damage tracks. If you had 5 or fewer damage tracks, let's say you had 5, and I critical hit you with a particle bolt gun, you'd take 6 damage and be destroyed from fresh. But anything bigger than that, you're right. The only way to get rid of it in a fresh one in one shot is with a critical hit. So not likely. Not likely. Your mileage may vary. Do a provocative. No, Dave. Sorry, it's not, this is not that kind of show. You do a provocative dance, Dave. They want you to bring in dancers next time, John.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. That's what they're asking for is dancers.
Cool. Trying to see if I can make the remote work. So if you wanted to zoom in here in a bit. Sure, if I'm putting the battery in. Give you any
Instructions?
plus side up. Turn the remote on in the camera to turn on.
Emily says dancers would upgrade the stream to 3 out of 5 stars. The last time I played that other game, there were no clan mechs. Only Intersphere. They hadn't even been made yet. It's been a long time, but I've heard similar things about how good those recon pilots are. So Gimli has upgraded us to 3 out of 5 stars, and he said dancers would make it 4.
As I am reminded over and over, this is a family show, so. Oh well, it says it's on. I hate to start pushing buttons and all of a sudden everything drops. All right.
Put on the list of things to figure out.
Sure why we're not out putting our full
thingy?
Well,
maybe you pushed a button, John.
No, I think it's been that way all day today. That's all right. It's working. I can mess with it now. All right, so let's pick our winner of our game pack. And we go. Get that. RP Dungeons wins a game pack. Congratulations. You two are next on The Price is Right. So they're trying to figure out how to one-shot everybody now?
Well, somebody made a comment about to telling the story, and obviously they're being funny about how we one-shot an emperor with a circuit, and obviously that's not possible.
No.
So went through the math in my head of the biggest weapon I could think of and all the modifiers you could possibly have, and then I realized you can only ever really do 6 points of damage, and you can only do those with particle.
Right. You'll never be able to DT a guy unless they're a 5 DT or less.
Right. We sort of did all that arithmetic while you were over there playing with the thing.
While I was playing with the stuff.
Yep.
With the dancers. The dancers that we're not allowed to show.
Yeah, John was over there. He was. I had to avert my eyes. That's all I have to say. Too young for that kind of stuff. Whatever it was.
I know that when I posted a little thing the other day about autocannons.
Yeah.
About being able to actually be amazed at what armor you can really punch through an autocannon that you wouldn't think.
Yeah.
And often it takes a lot of things to line up just right to be able to do it. But it does happen. It's happened more times than I can even count. So things do line up. So don't dismiss autocannons. They'll be tricky.
You're talking about CAV autocannons?
Yes.
With the full auto ability?
With the full auto ability. Yeah.
I want to say it was Master Guns that showed me how that stuff worked.
Yeah.
The first time out. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's not something that I would build my force around to count on.
Yeah.
But it comes in more than you would imagine that it does, and you're not always going to get enough numbers to punch, through an emperor or something like that. But a lot of the 6 and 7 armor guys that don't think that the little guy is going to get him gets him, because you don't always have to have you always got a chance of always rolling high regardless. I mean, even if you don't get the critical and get the double sixes, if you all of a sudden needed a 4 or 5 and you roll a 6 and you punch the other one with a 4 or a 5, your margin of success will help get you through. So it can be scary.
One thing I really like to do in CAV is I like to play the smaller guys. Like I have this idea for a campaign or a game, whatever you want to call it, where like 6 is the most damage tracks you can take. So it's like a lighter force, a recon force, or a force that you would leave behind in a rear area, not expecting them to have to do main combat, and have a clash between those guys. And then you could really run all the smaller guys that have trouble punching, like if you walk an emperor onto the table and you look down and the highest strength weapon you have in your force is 4, you're like, crap, this is going to be a bad day. But you can really play those guys if you and your opponent agree, hey, let's play these security forces.
Yes.
I think there's a whole world of fun games in there.
You can, and that's a good way to set up games too. Is you can limit it. You can do an equal point value and limit it to a certain, like I said, a number, nothing above a 5 DT or something like that. It's hard sometimes to do a DT based game, because there can be a lot of difference in threat value between this DT4 and this DT4, so it can mess you up there. But yeah, you can certainly limit it to a certain number of DTs.
Oh, they're making a comment about your Price of Right thing.
Oh,
don't bid a penny.
Don't bid a penny. Yeah. this is kind of a funny story, at least as long as no names are mentioned, is the first year I was at Origins running CAV at a table, and we were putting together games, and a man and his wife, I'm going to say man because I won't say gentleman, a man and his wife sat down to play CAV with us. Mm-hmm. And the man, and I'm assuming the wife did to an extent, played that game, the other mech game was their primary deal, but they'd heard about CAV, liked the miniatures, wanted to see what it was about. So we're handing out models, and the wife got, I don't know, a dictator or something like that. I believe a dictator. And he decided to take the con because he likes to run the locusts and those in a game. That guy. So now I always start off with the disclaimer at a game when I'm teaching new players, especially Battletech players that have played, is do not play your models like you would play in a Battletech game, especially the lighter guys. I said, everybody has a role and they need to keep with their role. And I use the example of a Jeep and a tank. You know, you don't put a 50 cal on the back of a Jeep and drive out and try to take out an M1. It usually doesn't work out very well for you. So with all that in mind and taking the time to explain to all the players what their role and what they should do and everything, guess what the guy with the con does? First 2 turns.
Runs out in the middle of the board?
Yes, he does, because he thinks he's going to run out there and get behind somebody and do what locusts like to do. Well, 5 minutes later, there is no con. It is literally, there is a pair of smoking feet where that dude was standing. All right. Because you, and I don't want to say that you can't run out in the middle of the board with recon guys. You can. You just don't do it when you are the only target. Yeah. When you have 2 squads worth of enemy lined up and the only guy that they can shoot is that recon con that came out into the middle of the board. And they needed decent numbers. It wasn't, you know, I mean, he had double time and everything and take advantage of that, but 2 squads worth of calves shooting at a con, you're going to get some hits.
Yeah.
So I want to say, let's see, what's a con? It's like 5 DT, 4 or 5, right? So it needs 5 or 6 DT. I'm relatively sure that they did at least 20 DT worth of.
They destroyed that con and his cousins.
Yes. So all 4 cons. 4 cons come out there. So our con player stood up and proceeded to lay into me over how stupid the game was, how dumb the game was, how would you have a game like this? You know, I will never play this game again. They had backed the Kickstarter, number 2, I think. As soon as he got home, all of the CAV minis were going up on eBay. Yeah. And poor wife is sitting there just, you know, eyes as big as saucers. Oh my God, what's happening, you know? Yeah. So he stomps off. And that's the last I ever heard her talk to him. She stayed till the end of the game. Came up and told me how much she enjoyed playing it, that she had played the other game, and it was a different game, but she had fun with it, and she died. I mean, she had died in the fight, but we had it set up so that, you know, if you died, that we had another one for you to take over. You know, you could stay till the end of the battle, right? And then afterwards, and apologize for, you know, the other half. And then afterwards, we handed out some gift certificates and some stuff like that. She showed up at the booth the next day to buy, I think she ended up getting a rule book and some figures and stuff, but I didn't see him. no him. So it's like you said, it's one of those stories that I don't know that's necessarily funny. It's just an interesting story if you've been around gamers, and it's probably a story you've heard 20 times, and I'm not trying to embarrass anybody, and I don't know their names, I can tell you, other than the fact that they were at Origins in Columbus. So, but that is a lesson that you will learn if you play this game very much. Is yeah, I don't think it's anybody that I really knew. And you don't know too. After it cooled down and he got home and the wife talked to him and they showed the stuff that she got or whatever. You know, maybe it was a spur of the moment thing. So. Actually, RPG, you need to put in exclamation mark, claim. Should be, I think I can do it without. Yeah. No, just claim, no ED. We don't need any ED here. Come on.
John, you're.
Oh, stop it. So, but with that story in mind, that was what I was trying to explain. And that, to me, of course, I'm biased, but that's one of the, I think, the strengths of the game that I like is recon guys need to do recon stuff.
Yeah.
Fire support guys do fire support stuff. Assault guys do this. Defense guys, you know, everybody has a role that they're supposed to do, and it's not you know, and it's not just in that other game. There's other games that do the same thing, that they call guys attack or assault or something like that, and recon and stuff like that. But they're really not. They're all just smaller or bigger versions of each other, and it goes on. So everybody fights equal. And what was about sandpaper? You're talking about sandpaper in each other.
That's what that game always felt like to me. Was I'd read the fiction and I was excited. I was like, "This is fantastic! It's
right.
Dark, it's gritty. These mechs are punching holes in things." And
right.
I'd get on the table and I'd put 2 points in your left arm and 3 points in your center torso and 1 point in your left leg, and rinse and repeat that for 3.5 hours. And eventually, I'd sanded the paint off your mech.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely about the only time that really comes in is if you get off on somebody and give them time to repair up a little bit and come back into it. But once you get somebody on that downward curve, especially when you hit about the halfway point on them, it accumulates quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to. That's something, and sometimes you can't do it. Sometimes they get somebody back behind the guns that you'll lose 30 of your force to go back to just try to get him. And he gets back there and he gets a few good rolls and repairs back up.
Yep. And
is back in the game. Not such a bad thing with the little guys, but it's bad when you work the Emperor and let him come back in or something. That can get kind of ugly. All right. We're going to have our next drawing up here in a little bit, and then in about 40 minutes, we're going to start on our game. So, how are we going to do? All right, when we put up our next drawing, we are going to be giving away a packet of the Circuit and the Horus, the metal special edition figures for CAV-CON 2020. So we'll be giving one of those each away. And because they're the packets, you get two. The Horuses come in two. So Circuit's a single, the Horus is a pair.
Double tanks.
And Kruger, that is definitely something that you can do. That's not what I wouldn't take just one squad and try to do that, just because you have to have somebody, your fire support guys have to have some support. If you go, especially on some of them that with artillery that have no close combat stuff at all, when they get under the guns at 12 inches, it's ugly. Very, very ugly. You might as well eject because it's a done deal. But artillery calves, if you're not playing with the upgrades as far as with the extra artillery rounds that you can choose with, artillery is great for crowd control because their shock numbers are so high. You can literally
Keep you from going where you want to
go
go.
and keep the other side from going. You're not probably going to do a lot of damage, just unless some lucky rolls or whatever. But especially if they group up, and the AOE's are huge too. I mean, I think there's like a 6-inch one, so you got a 12-inch circle. Yeah, I mean they are great for that, for crowd control. So you definitely want to watch out for that. Either my wife is asking me a question or telling me to shut up. What do you want to? Shall we take a vote? Quit talking. It's Sunday. I can't help it. Oh, that's right.
What?
I didn't show the really big dictator.
Well, I saw it down there.
All right, so work on that for a minute. I'm gonna go see if I can put it together, and then we'll go from there. We'll get that done before the game. You gotta take over, man.
I don't want to paint, John. I don't like
Well, you
painting.
don't have to paint. Talk to him. Bring up questions. I meant to do that this morning.
The problem is I don't know the answer. You're the boss, not me.
I bet you can come up with stuff.
All right.
The worst thing you can do is tell you that you are.
Bring out the dancers. All right. Now that he's gone. No. I don't actually work for the company. I'm just John's friend, and I came up to help him out. Aesthetically, what is my favorite mech? My favorite mech, aesthetically. What do you think? Favorite mech. There's so many of them. Yeah, so you definitely want the answer to be a CAV. Favorite mech. I think I like the Duelist the best. It's a Templar Cav. John ran one of them in both of the games so far this weekend. It has the 6 light max. It's kind of shaped a little bit like a rifleman or something. There's 3 sets of 3 max on each side. It's tall. It walks around. It's just a good looking Duelist. I'm not sure I said the right name. It's called the Duelist. That's probably my favorite looking one. There's another Templar Cav that's got a similar style, the Crusader, which also has like the high mounted arm, like shoulder mounted weapons kind of. That one's pretty good. This Pillager's nice. There's a ton of them that are good. My favorite one, I don't know. I can definitely tell you my favorite looking tank in the game. Yeah, the Crusader's beautiful. Currently my favorite of the release tanks, probably I would choose the Banshee. I think the Banshee is the best looking tank. It's a Malvernus grav tank. Got a couple of them painted up in this scheme at the house. I love the Spatha, which you can all pick up. That's a good looking tank as well. It's a triangular and there's a twin. Physically, it has 2 separate barrels, although there are I think 4 guns in. Lance tank. Oh yeah. The Lance tank is that big thing with the big. I'm not sure what its weapon is, but it's a large, bulky, tracked tank with one single main cannon. It's very slow. It's sort of a defensive tank. I think if you have to deploy it on the table, that is a great looking tank as well. It's really hard, but I think it's short range. Maybe it's got a PPG in it. Yeah, okay. I love the look of the Banshee. So there are some unreleased tanks. John showed pictures of them recently that are Almirithil. There's the Cossack, which I love the look of the Cossack. It's again a triangular sort of a grav tank. That's kind of my niche. I like that quite a bit. I think the Armada, which is coming out, is really sharp. The Hound is a ground-based, like a wheeled Almirithil model that John has shown. A Rourke, how you doing out there, Rourke? I see you. Loves the Simba, which is the big 4-legged Terran Walker. I say it's Terran. It's actually probably open, meaning that there are lots of different versions of the Simba, a 4-legged infantry carrying transport. Yeah, one heavy PVG and two heavy machine guns. See that, Gimli? Yeah, 100% right. In fact, at the first year I was at CAV-CON, ReaperCon, I saw the Simba for sale, and I didn't even know what it was. But I bought 3 or 4 of them, thinking this is the best looking tank ever. Turns out it's pretty specialized. John, that thing was moving. The gun was moving. I didn't want it to fall. I bought 3 or 4 of them, not knowing they're kind of specialized. You can't really include them as a CAV in a regular like fighting force that have a special role. So I own a bunch of those. Tiger Wraith the Devastator is that big, unique, super heavy thing that John released last year right around CAV-CON. It's a 4-legged attack monster. Yeah, I don't remember its stats. I just remember going, this thing is ridiculous.
If you want a crunchy model, that is a crunchy model.
That thing could shoot for days. Rotary Max, 4 of them, yeah. But like I said, it's got a lot of strange essays that aren't common. For instance, it's unique. You can only ever field 1 of them. I believe it's also a specialist, which means it has to go in a specialist squad. John, is that the rule?
Yep.
Okay. So it can only go in a specialist squad. Yeah, but even as a one-off, that'll be a lot of fun. What are you going to base that conversion on, Tiger? Is that a Simba conversion, probably? Not sure yet. Okay. Post some pictures up when you start on that. I'll be curious to see how that goes for you. Might have to copy it if you are out looking fantastic, which I'm sure it will. Aircraft wise, it's hard to not love the Taseki too. This Gast, I'm not sure you can see it. I just really love the tail structure on this Gast, this sort of low, underswept. Like I said, earlier in the weekend, it kind of looks like the tail of a scissor tail flycatcher. It's just a good looking airplane. I think all of those resin kits that John did in this third Kickstarter are really good. Here's this isn't a resin model. I may have 3D printed this one, but this is a good looking Taseki 2. Just a fantastic model. Some of the old things that haven't been reprinted yet, like the Tsar, I think are good. Dave really likes the Gast aircraft. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. At some point in time, I'm hoping John will add the ability to the Twitch channel for us to have faction emotes or maybe even faction icons, so we can kind of declare our loyalty in the chat stream and things like that. And then you can, when you like something or you convey your thoughts or feelings, you can throw out some faction-based emotes. I think that'll be a lot.
I was going to say something about something you're talking about.
Okay. John's got the thing switched off the Twitch feed, so if you're saying something,
yeah, give me just a second.
I'll look it up on my. In case anybody's. There we go. Phone is having trouble connecting to the chat for some reason, so I other
Just a house.
You're looking for what?
Someone was going to tell us.
Okay, John's going to share us a piece of wisdom here in just a minute, whatever it is. Twiga, I don't recognize.
That's what I was getting ready to.
John's pulled up a list of data cards that I don't recognize. There's things in there I've not seen before.
These are some of the new variants.
Stand by for excitement.
That people may not have caught.
Yeah. Apparently John has snuck some stuff out that we've either not seen or not realized. Shiragaru-san? That's Ashigaru. Is that the one with the 2 duck fans with the rear, the big wing in the back? Can't remember.
Okay. Yes, the old Tsar became the broadsword dropship, because Czar, really, that name kind of went with the naming conventions for the rock.
Okay.
And so the Czar became their quad, the rock's quad fire support. So that, the Devastator was kind of a weird deal. It started as a conversation one night between me and a couple other people as to how crunchy we could go with the construction rules. Because unfortunately, any good or a good, decent set of construction rules is if you limit it too much, it really pigeonholes you into everything kind of being the same. So I wanted to leave things wide enough so that if there's something that you needed to, for a story or how you needed to convert something, that you could. So, and that's the reason when I go in and normally build a model or a variant or something like that, I don't make it as perfect as it could be. It's like we were talking about not always doubling up weapons or put a single weapon in a turret, even though you could put two. It saves on threat value points, but it also makes stuff unusual, different. Yeah, something like that. How well it would scale. It actually found us an issue that we had left out. The fact that quads get an extra hard point to use was not calculated into their threat value. So we actually, the current version of all the threat values take that into account. So you see most of your quads went up in points a little bit with what we had to do, because when we first made the Devastator, it was like a 900-point model.
Yeah, it was cheap.
Yeah, and relatively to another right, for what it did, for what you got. And some of the limitations that it has, because I think it has reduced turn and some other things on it too. Those are used to lower the threat value, but it can make a big effect on the game. In fact, that he doesn't get any free turns. That can be a big deal when you're trying to move. And he's got a horrible movement. I think he's 1-2 or 2-3 or something like that. So literally, you could stand back and missile him or rocket him to death. I mean, you could kill him that way, but relatively easy with the right models. But my idea for this guy was he's a defender. When you have a city or a base or something important that you need to keep control of, they put a Devastator there, or your faction. He is an open model because I wasn't going to make Devastator versions for everybody. Yeah. But those type of, I guess maybe even call them monitors. I mean, the monitor class or a dreadnought class or something like that. That's what he's for. They're very expensive. They're very rare. That's the reason why they're unique and specialist and all that stuff. So, you can bring one out there and have fun with it. Like I said, with the way he's built, you could guided missile him or rocket him to death if you needed to. But if he didn't have anybody to support him to take care of those problems. But he's a fun model. I look forward to us doing a mini for him.
Yeah, me too.
Once I decided to go ahead and I went back and forth of was I even going to put it in and make it an official model. Right. But I went ahead and did it. I thought he would be fun. Yeah, he's at 10-16 threat value now with 12 DT and 4 heavy BIMRAC. But he's got like armor 10.
Yeah, he's huge.
Yeah, and movement, but his moves suck.
And isn't he like a large target or easy to hit or something like that?
Yes, you're +1 to all your rolls right off the bat. Yeah.
The sort of model you would build like a siege game around.
Right.
Like the defender would get a Devastator.
Yeah, move 3, armor 10, move 3.
So he running guns for 4?
Would be 3 - 1 and double. Yeah,
4.
Running gun 4. Okay. Is that really a running gun? That's kind of a stumbling gun, isn't it?
You could slide down the hill that far.
Stumbling, bumbling.